Becoming an airline pilot. Today we are at video number 2. Video number 1 we discuss what are the pathways and how the pilot courses are structured. Today we take a specific example of the Aviomar Future Flyer Academy that brings the career as a pilot with Ryanair. We take this example as a generic mentor course that lead to the career with whatever company, and after that we'll make a little bit of financial analysis to determine if this investment is worth the effort. If you're interested in this topic, follow me into the Pilot Lounge. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again. That's video number 2 and video number 1, which is linked in the description. We discussed how to become a pilot, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, or the costs, the problems you might find during this part. Today we will discuss on especially the structure of the courses and most importantly the calculation of costs and benefit of taking this decision. Before starting, I shall remind you that there is a video disclaimer which is linked in the description, and I shall remind you that yes, I am working for both Aviomar and Ryanair, but I have no business connection, no interest in this program. So the training program for the Ryanair Future Flyer Academy is not one of my products. I have no connection to this product, meaning that all I'm saying could change as soon as even today as I'm recording this video. So everything has to be taken as, I would say, advisory, as if it's just a chat with a friend that tells you, look, this is the situation as I know it, as it is now. As we speak, it could be already changing.
Paolo's Pilot Lounge. Like and subscribe now.
So let's kick in, let's start talking on how these courses are structured. Now we say that there are 4 pathways. One is the military, we're not really interested in, but the other 4 are the MPL, the modular courses, the integrated course, which would be what we call Whitetail, or the Ryanair Future Flyer Academy. I will not discuss the military, of course. I will not discuss the MPL because I don't really have much experience on the MPL courses. But we start by discussing the modular, which is very simple. The principle is that you have several modules that you have to go through. Now the advantage is that you can take as much time as you want. Actually, you're not obliged to complete. So a private person that wants to have a private license to fly his own aircraft or to rent an aircraft, he would just take a PPL license. This might last for even 6 months or 1 year, depending on how much you are working and how much time you can dedicate to the study of the PPL. It is a license itself, so it means that you will have a theoretical examination, you will have a practical examination. It's more or less 40 hours of flight, and then you get the PPL. However, after this is done, you continue to what is called hour building. So you will have to do a number of hours to complete your visual flight. And if you want to continue into the career of pilot, then you have to go for the CPL, Commercial Pilot License. During the CPL, you get theoretical instructions and you will be doing the exams of the ATPL, Airline Transport Pilot License. These exams of the ATPL is what you need to obtain the final license that you're looking for, which is the ATPL. Once this theoretical part is done, you also have the commercial pilot license and the IFR rating, so you will be flying on instruments, not looking outside but just looking inside on the instruments of the aircraft. And with instruments flight, you will do a total, since the beginning, you will have something which range to approximately 180 hours. You will have an additional 40 hours of simulator. These hours will include night flying, multi-engine flying, upset recoveries, all modules that you can take. So you might decide to do just the IFR in one school and do the CPL in a different school. And as I said in the previous video, the problem with this is exactly that many pilots find that one course is cheaper in one school rather than the other. They start moving from one school to the other, and what happens is that at the end of the day, none of the schools did his real training. So this guy is kind of left alone. If there is a problem with this pilot, nobody will fix the problem, because it's not my pilot. He has not been trained in my school. He just gone to my school for just one little module, just little course, and therefore it's not a pilot produced by my flight school. If this is the case, well, you have to be very careful in looking after yourself, because changing from one school to the other very often is counterproductive in terms of the quality of the training that you receive. But because it's all module by module, every module can take a limited time, but there's more modules. So basically you can do the PPL and the hour building, and maybe after 2 years then you decide to go for the theoretical examination. You can take 2 years to do the theoretical examination, and then eventually you move to the IFR. After 6 years you actually started your PPL. So you can take as much time as you want. This part is ideal for the persons that doesn't have immediate money availability. They want to start the course, they're willing to study, but they also have a job and they really don't have that much spare time to invest. They can't stay 2 years just studying, so they keep studying and working at the same time. The last module of this course is the APS MCC. And we said it is possible to choose the Future Flyer Academy APS MCC. So basically, even from a modular course, you have the possibility to join the Ryanair program, so to become a Ryanair pilot. What is the disadvantage of joining the Future Flyer Academy by a modular course at the moment of the APS MCC? Well, the disadvantage is that sponsorship that Ryanair offer, so those 30,000 euros that Ryanair gives to you to pay the type rating, well, this is going to be lost, meaning that you will have to pay for your type rating. But still, there is a pathway to become a Ryanair pilot, so it's still a good option. Again, it's not easy to do this path. You have to look after yourself for the training, so don't think that this is an easy route. Okay, I would say this is probably the most difficult one, so be cautious with this, but it is a possible path. The other path is the ab initio integrated course. So same as the Future Flyer Academy, we are talking of an integrated course. Now this integrated course will start with some theory. In this theory you get approximately 4 or 5 months of study, where you get the same theoretical knowledge that you get on the PPL license. So basically you have the same level of knowledge of a PPL pilot. But on an integrated course, we say you don't get any license. The only license you get is the TPL, Air Transport Pilot License, at the completion of the course after 2 years. So yeah, on the initial part, you have the same knowledge. You will do basically the same part of flying, so flying VFR and doing the solo takeoff. You will do all this part of flying, but you don't have state exams. You don't have the flight authority exams, because you don't have the level of knowledge required for the TPL license, and you're not seeking for a PPL license, so you're not going to get those exams. Once you finish the initial flight part, then you get back in classroom and doing the so-called the professional part of the course, so the advanced part of the study for air transport commercial use. And after this advanced part of the study, you will be allowed to access the authority exams. How does the authority exams works? Well, you have a total of approximately is exactly 18 months, so 1 year and a half. In 18 months you have to complete all the exams. So from the very first exam you gave, you have 18 months time to complete all the exams. You have a total of 13 subjects, and you have to give the exam of those 13 subjects in a maximum number of 6 sessions. So in the 18 months you more or less have 1 session per month approximately, sometimes even 2. But in the total time of 1 year and a half, you have to take maximum 6 sessions to give 13 exams. Okay, you choose which exam to give. So you might decide to go to one session and give just one exam, but then the next session it's better you give a bit more, because if you do 5 exams in 5 sessions, then you get all the remaining exams, the remaining 8, well, they are in just one session, so it's going to be hard to do. But this is how the law is. Additionally speaking, you have the possibility to repeat an exam a maximum of 4 times, which means that along these 6 sessions, you can take an exam 4 times. So you can go the first session, you do, I don't know, you try 3 exams and 1 you fail. You fail meteorology, okay? Well, the next session, you can do another 2 exams and repeat meteorology. And you can still fail meteorology. And third session, you can again give meteorology and eventually fail meteorology and repeat it again. And that's a maximum of 4 times. So the 4th time you try to do the exam of meteorology, you must pass it. In the case you cannot pass the exam within 6 sessions, or in the case where you fail an exam more than 4 times, well, in that case you lost all your credit for the ATPL and you must start over everything again. Of course, when you start over, you get that period of 18 months starting again. But after those theoretical exams are done, then you continue with the IFR, instrumental flight rule, so you fly on instruments. You're going to be doing a total a bit less than the modular actually, because being integrated you might save a few hours, so you might even finish the course with approximately 170 hours of flight time. But yeah, you're going to be doing the IFR, you're going to be doing 40 hours of simulator, you will have an MCC, and that's it. This brings you to the ATPL license. Again, even across the integrated course, it is possible, well, it is possible if you're an Aviomar student. But if you're not an Aviomar student, what happens is that it is possible for you to complete the entire ATPL course, to obtain the license, and still you can apply to go and repeat basically the MCC, which is the last part of the training. Same as for the modular, the last part of the training is the MCC. So if you repeat the MCC by doing the APS MCC, the Future Flyer Academy, well, at this point you might have your place granted with Ryanair. Same problem, you will still have to pay for the type rating in this case. So this is the disadvantage in taking this path. Now, the little advantage is that if you are an Aviomar student, instead of doing the normal MCC and then repeating the MCC, you can switch straight away and take the APS MCC as part of the ATPL integrated course. So in that case, yes, you will be saving a little bit of money. And it's nice to know there's still an option. But again, as compared to the Ryanair Future Flyer Academy, the white-tail course does not give you this sponsorship. So you will lose the advantage of having this 30,000 euros of the type rating paid by Ryanair. Now, advantage, why would I choose this course? Well, there might be cases where it might be a good option. So if you think that you can take an integrated course, you can be within a maximum of 36, maximum extension 48 months. So if in your opinion you can be within a 48 months, because maybe you have a flexible job, so you are working but you're really flexible on time, so you can study, but still you need your times. You can't fulfill the times imposed by Ryanair. And maybe you're also afraid you're gonna fail some exams and you don't want to have the pressure of the company being behind you and monitoring every day your performance. Well, in this case, the white-tail could be the good option for you, because as I said before, once you are in a modular, once you are in a white-tail, there is a general data protection. So even if Ryanair asks us details on your performance across the whole training course, we cannot give to Ryanair this information. So basically, they don't know if you went to the exams. Maybe if you repeated meteorology 4 times, because you just went to the exam and you were just guessing the answer. Well, I hope this is not the case, but they don't know. Now, why I say I hope this is not the case, because when you do the assessments to join the Future Flyer Academy, or anyway to join a company at whatever stage of your career, of course, in the assessment there will be a technical interview, and those who were just guessing the answer, well, you will find them pretty fast. So that is not a good Now, the last and the most interesting, I would say, option is the Future Flyer Academy. The Future Flyer Academy is starting with 2 days of assessment. Nothing too serious, I would say, because you have no experience as a pilot, so there's no much we can ask you basically. But yes, in those 2 days of assessment, there is 1 day at home done at the computer doing some logic games. If I don't go wrong, there's also a kind of camera interview. So there is a video asking you a question, or there's a written question on the screen, and you have to record the video where you answer that question. Again, there is no can I say, no aeronautical question. So yes, we might ask you why would you like to be in Ryanair, why you would like to become a pilot, but apart from this, you know, I cannot ask you technical questions about the aircraft, so it's very easy. The second day is in presence, and it's going to be a test of mathematics, a test of physics, and there is a group exercise and a one-to-one interview. So these are the 2 days of assessment to join the Ab Initio Future Flyer Academy in Aviomar, and this is what brings you to Ryanair with the sponsorship of the type rating from Ryanair. So Ryanair will offer to you the type rating. Once you pass the assessment, you will start, same as the other integrated courses, with 4 months theory. So it looks like there is no difference, but there is difference. Because first of all, among these 4 months, you already have some progress test. So we are monitoring your performance. Not only, you get all the required knowledge, which will be equivalent to the PPL, the pilot private license, because you have to fly an aircraft which is in the class of the private pilot. But in addition to that, you will get some of the subject, a selected number of subjects, which will be studied in full. At the end of these 4, maybe maximum 5 months, you will be ready, you will have all the required knowledge to give 6 exams to the authority. So you will go straight away to the authority and give 6 exams. And guess what? Ryanair does not want you to go there and guess the answers, you know. No, they want, as we say, the advantage of this course is that the company can monitor how his pilots are trained. This is the advantage for the company. There is an advantage for you indeed, because you got the job granted, but this means that Ryanair does not want you to go to the exam and guess what the answer could be. No, they want you to go to the exam, and they want you to show that you are absolutely certain of the correct answer, that you are a professional, so of course you know the correct answer that a professional pilot should know. And of course this is very challenging because you have 0 experience in flying basically. So I reckon that having a minimum of experience, at least the solo takeoff, would strongly help. But as a matter of fact, this is how the course is structured, and I have to say this is working very well, because the majority of the students can manage to pass the exams at the first attempt, and they manage to pass all 6 exams. So that is not something easy, I would say. It requires a lot of study indeed, but it's totally feasible. Once it is done, then you move into the flight part. So you move into the VFR flight, visual flight rule flights, with at more or less 15 hours. The solo takeoff, so you do your first flight alone. That's exactly to what you would do on a whitetail course. You finish more or less with approximately 70 hours. Once this visual flight, 70 hours are done, again, you get back to the 4th phase, I should call it, or anyway, the 2nd theoretical phase, where in the 2nd theoretical phase, again, you complete the subjects that were not completed. So, for example, engines is something that is studied in the 2nd part. You already started engines because you started the piston engines as you were flying on a piston aircraft, but now you will start studying the jet engine, so you will prepare to fly on a 737, and therefore you will give the engines exam, which include piston and jet engines. Once the remaining exam, which is a total of 7 exams, are done, basically you finish with the authority exams. And at this point, you continue with the IFR, the instrumental flight rule. During the IFR, you do some flight on the aircraft, 40 hours in the simulator, in the Alsim 500 simulator, which is a generic aircraft simulator. And you have some modules, which is the upset recovery training, the night flying, the multi-engine rating. Again, all these modules, they're also included in the whitetail integrated, and they're also included as a module of the modular course. So there is no difference in what the pilot gets trained in. You get exactly the same training. But again, here you got once again the company which is monitoring your performance across the whole pathway. Okay, and at the end of this IFR training, you get the APS MCC, which is much more than the minimum legal requirement, because you do 40 hours on the 737 using exactly the Ryanair SOPs, and at this point you will be ready to be presented to Ryanair for the assessment. Not before having done the final exam, because the final exam is done with the authority on the real aircraft, so on a multi-engine real aircraft, oh sorry, my mistake, on a single engine real aircraft. And after having done the exam, you will obtain the license. With the license in your hand, you will go to Ryanair, and as ab initio Future Flyer Academy, you will be allowed to obtain this sponsorship and not paying your type rating with Ryanair.
Paolo's Pilot Lounge. Like and subscribe now.
So, in conclusion, we can say that the contents of the course are the same, would it be modular or integrated course, but we saw that there is a significant difference between the Whitetail ab initio integrated and the Future Flyer Academy integrated course. In the Future Flyer Academy, there is much more monitoring, and most importantly, you have to give the exams at the beginning of the 4 months. Therefore, the study requirement is much higher. And this is not random. This is wanted by the company because they want to see and make sure that their pilots, they're proficient since day one. So where does the highest number of failure occur across those paths? Well, in the modular, it depends. As a matter of fact, if you fail, you can repeat a single module, so I don't really have a number for that. In the ab initio, what happens, the most difficult part is the exams. And because you do the exams more or less after 1 year having started the course, when you have more or less 70 hours of flight, most of the failures occurs when you already have 70 hours of flying, which is a bit of a shame because you already spend a good amount of money and then you realize that you're unable to give the exams. So of course, even in an ab initio course, you have to be cautious and you have to self-evaluate yourself and see if you are really on top of what you are studying. You cannot passively listen a course and say, yeah, anyway, the exam is in 1 year, who cares? Because 1 year goes fast, and then in 1 year you have to start giving exams. So it's very important that you work really hard since day one, even on the Whitetail integrated course. But as a matter of fact, there's not going to be anyone checking on you, because once you start on day one, it takes 1 year until you actually start doing the exams. For the Ryanair course, is completely different because you do the exams in the beginning, so most of the failures actually occur in the first 4 months. Some pilots even leave before the 4 months. We had cases where pilots could not pass the exam and decided to go Whitetail, but that is a shame, because you understand that if you move from the Future Flyer Academy to Whitetail ab initio integrated course, you can continue your course indeed, but at the end you have to apply to Ryanair again, and even if you pass, well, then you have to pay the 30,000 euros because you lost the sponsorship. So it's really a shame. I've seen cases like that, but I tell you, it's really a shame because you basically have the same qualities and performance of the other pilots. Other pilots just respected the times imposed by the company and they had the sponsorship, and you, just because was not prepared correctly for the exams, ended up being out of this course, and then eventually, yeah, you join again the company, as I said, but you know, now you lost the sponsorship. As we're approaching the end of this video, let's move to the check. How much is this gonna cost to you? Well, as I said in the beginning of the video, is not given to everyone. Not everyone can be an airline pilot. There is no support from the state, at least not in Italy, and in the majority of European countries more or less like this, and there is no support from the Europe. There's no European fund helping you to become a pilot. Unfortunately, it's unfair, because if you choose to do the university, you're gonna pay more or less the same amount of money and you will have a huge amount of financial support in that case. But if you're in a family where you don't have this kind of financial support, well, in this case, you can really compare the expenses of being to the university with becoming a pilot. So let's make a table, because I want to basically understand how much money is this gonna cost me, okay? So let's build a table. Here I have built a table listing, basically imagining a young boy, the age of 30. Of course you could start at 20, the minimum age is 18, so you could start your flight school at 18. But let's pretend that the young boy or girl has the age of 30, and at the age of 30 this person has approximately the amount of 100,000 euros to invest in his future career. So he wants to make an investment that will be his job for the future. Now on the left column I want to put the price of the university. How much does a university cost? Well, I have no idea, but what I'm doing is that I'm googling it. So I'm just looking at what could be the university cost, and it costs something like 20,000 euros, between 0 and 20,000 euros, depend from the countries. Now 0 I would strongly doubt, and anyway, as I say, you're not going to be trained for 0 in aviation, so that doesn't compare. But because I want to be, let's say, on the conservative side, what I will insert is 15,000 euros. So we pretend that to go to the university is 15,000 euros. I think is a fair amount to pay. Let's say the cost of the university, would it be private or public, depending from the countries, and I think it's a honest number, okay? And we insert 5 years of university with a cost of 15,000 per year. Now we pretend that after these 5 years, you see I make the box brown, because now you are ready to work, you are ready to earn money, okay? How much did it cost to you? You can see that we arrived at 75,000 euros lost in 5 years. Now we have to consider that in those 5 years you didn't only spend for the university, you also spent for your housing, you spend for your food. So it's 5 years where either you or your family were giving you money for food and housing and car, fuel, bills and everything. All right, in the yellow column, I want to make a calculation thinking that this young boy or girl decide to invest all his money in a self-employment business. Now it could be millions of things. You could buy a tractor and go work with a tractor, a truck, or you could buy a restaurant. I just imagine a restaurant. You could go on internet and invest all your money in stock markets and and just believe all this advertising that goes on. But I mean, up to you. We are considering that you put all your money in a restaurant. Now, of course, there is a big risk in this case, and the big risk is, what if that thing get lost? You buy a truck. What if you have an accident and you destroy the truck? If you have a restaurant, what if there is a fire in your restaurant? But anyway, we presume that you have good insurance for that, and indeed, once you start your restaurant, the works are done, kitchen is ready. Basically, maybe 1 month, 2 months, your restaurant is ready to go. So compared to the university, you have already saved 5 years of housing, 5 years of food, but we're not going to do this calculation here. So we just look, at the end of the year, how much money did you spend? So this guy in just 1 year spent all his money. Actually, just 1 month spent all his money to start this restaurant, okay? Now, for what concerns the pilot career, which is the third line, we pretend that you take your TPL license, which I say it costs 90,000 euros. You can pay as you go with the training, so it's going to be bit by bit. And at the end of 2 years, you will be holding your TPL and you have spent 90,000 euros. Now you're ready to look for a job, and you have to find a job. Once you find a job, you have to pay the type rating. So what I'm writing down here is at 0, because I pretend that for 1 year you don't find a job. Actually, to be precise, for 1 year and 9 months you don't find a job. But finally, after 1 year of 9 months of unemployment, you find a job, and you have to pay for your type rating. Type rating prices that varies between 12,000 and 120,000 euros. So it's very difficult to pull out a number, but of course it's very rare that you have the type ratings of 120,000 euros as a very first job. I would say it's nearly impossible. So for a career starting, I would say the most expensive is 30,000. Maybe you could find something with more, but it's very rare. So I would say as a absolutely conservative, realistic number, 30,000 is a good number. So basically here you took 2 years for the study and 1 year and a half, even more, 1 year and 9 months unemployed, completely doing nothing, and then you started your typewriting basically after 2 years finishing the course. So I'm trying to be conservative, okay, which means again you had to pay housing and food for 4 years basically. Good. At this point, let's give a look and see what are the earning opportunities of those 3 guys, okay? Well, starting with the university guy, honestly, I've seen most of the times you don't find a job straight away. You need to take a master if you want to find a better job, which is better paid. But in this specific case, we pretend that he start earning straight away, okay? So I'm going to say it, actually, I'm looking for what is the approximately salary of a person in Europe that gets out of the university. That's what I'm asking to Google, and it says 37,900 euros as average number. Okay, maximum could be it says even 80,000, but that's the maximum. Let's take an average number. Which sounds, honestly, as a first job after university, it sounds to me pretty high, but especially here in Italy. But anyway, let's use this number, okay? So I will insert, just to make a round number, I will insert 40,000. I give him a little bit of pay rise, okay? He start earning 40,000. Of course, he's not gonna earn 40,000 for all his career. So we should see, okay, what is the inflation, which in Europe it's approximately 2.4%, okay? So I should increase this 40,000 euros by 2.4%, which, well, not the good mathematics, but we can call it like 1,000 euros approximately. So what I'm gonna do is to insert a pay rise of 1,000 euro year after year. There we go. Inserting all these numbers, looks like at the end of his career, when he's 70 years old, it's going to be around 70,000 euros per year, 75,000 euros per year. We're interested in the last number, which now I'll make it in red. All right. So this last number, you see, it's 1,920. So it's basically 2 million euros. So in all his career, this guy earned 2 million euros, which I would say, as a matter of fact, it's a statistical person, okay? But as a matter of fact, it doesn't look like being a bad salary. So probably the university was a good investment. These 2 million euros, we keep it in mind as a number, but let's try to make something which is realistic. I know I want to be conservative from the pilot point of view, okay? But let's try to be conservative. What I want to do is to insert numbers which are more similar to at least what I've experienced across my friends with the university study here in Italy. At least in Italy, it is impossible that you get a salary of approximately 40,000 per year as soon as you finish the university without even a master. So here you see I wrote down as example lawyer, and I just want to write down the numbers of a friend of mine who's been to the university and was a lawyer. So what happens is that once he finished the university, it wasn't true that he was ready to work. Actually, he had to go through a master, and he had to go through additional state exams. So it cost to him another basically year of university. So we are talking of 6 years of university. Also because it's not said that everyone is going to be able to complete the university in the given amount of years. You might get a bit longer. So considering 6 years of university, I think is quite okay as realistic number for a lawyer, in order to then find a job. What happened in this case is that then for the following 2 years, he was actually working for free. So he didn't get paid because he needed to do experience as a lawyer. And, this was the bad thing a little bit on his side, studying 6 years at the university, working that hard and actually getting zero for the first years. Yeah, that wasn't great, but still it was experience for him. After that, for sure, he started working. I tell you honestly, his salaries weren't great. He maybe finished the month with 1,500 euros. Still, he was happy he was getting something, but after so much efforts, 6 years university, 2 years of doing just practice, finishing the month even with 2,000 euros, not that happy. Of course, this salary will, I would say, reasonably after 3 years you're working, your salaries could start to be a bit more reasonable. I have no idea what he had, this friend of mine, at this time, but I wouldn't say 30,000. But at some point, I would say after a few years that you have work experience and still you did your university, so you have your titles, well, at this point, reasonably your salary is going to grow significantly. So what I did is that more or less after 10 years this person is working is going to be on a 60,000 euros per year, which is, I would say, starts to be quite a decent and a good salary. Now, because the student started studying the university at 30, now he's 47. If he would have started at 20, now it would be 37 years old, okay? But we have to work with these numbers, with the guy that started at the age of 30, okay? After that, well, his salary is gonna start growing, and you see that with this growth of 2.5% per annum, he finished his career with 80,000, okay? Most likely, for a lawyer, it could be even better. In most cases, I would say it could be even better. But I would say that's probably a realistic number, and that's, what this friend of mine experienced as a lawyer, And still, if you're on a salary which is of 60 to 80,000 euros per annum, we're talking of something which is, 5,000 to 7,000 euros per month, which is, a honest salary. So I would say, even applying this more realistic thing, which is based on my friend's experience, okay, actually we don't have any significant change on the final number. We still have maybe 100,000 euros less. Well, we're not really looking precisely at it, but we are talking of 2 million total, okay? You could tell me, no, it's more, okay? We could take 2 million enough, maybe at the end of the career because he got more, but I would say these numbers are quite reasonable and possible for a person that takes the university. Now we have to reason on the restaurant. So what if I take this money and invest it in the restaurant, okay? So let's go on Google and try to understand what are the chances of having success by opening a restaurant. So let's see, opening time. No, this is the. So let's say how long a restaurant stays in business, okay? But here it says there is no average in Europe, but significant portion, roughly 50 to 80%, fail within the first 5 years. So, well, that's an interesting number. It means that if you put, 100,000 euros in your restaurant, you got up to 80% chances that after 5 years all your investment is wasted. So the final result is that you wasted 100,000 euros and 5 years of work. 80% chances, okay? It's massive. Now, even trying to be conservative from the pilot point of view, I will use the number of 50%, okay? So we consider that you have 1 chance over 2 that your restaurant has failed, but here I will be very cautious because this 80% really makes me worried. The question becomes, okay, but what about those guys that stays open? Well, let's say in average, how many restaurants stays open for 10 years, for example? Well, only 34.6. Well, yeah, just keep this number. I'll just write down 66% chances that you lost all your investment. So basically, I would say this investment, would it be 50, would it be 80, would it be 66 after 10 years, is not brilliant. And let's see if I can find, let's see, in Europe, in average, how many restaurants stay open for 30 years, for example. Here it says there is no single average. Again, the majority struggle to survive over 5 years, making it unlikely that a large percentage of European restaurants remains open over 30 years. So basically, over 30 years is really unlikely that your restaurant is still on. But here there is some consideration to do. So to get our head around this option of the self-employment, evaluating the option of being self-employed, like for example having a restaurant or making another kind of investment which is 100,000 euros worth, is very difficult to evaluate the number of chances of success. But as a matter of fact, well, that's what the number says for the restaurant. So there is a good amount of chance that that within 10 years you lost entirely all your money. Now, this is not a guarantee. It could be very well that you are extremely successful, but is extremely successful meaning that you have an income which is comparable to the university guy. Well, it's less than 33%, and anyway, after 30 years your restaurant will most likely go bankrupt, so your business will most likely be sold out. Now, the 30 years thing worries me a bit less, because it means, I mean, if you've been doing that business for 30 years, it means that you were living out of it decently. Otherwise, you would have stopped before. But the real big problem is the first 10 years. This 5 and 10 years gate, I would say, is what makes me really concerned. So you must be really well motivated and really have a very, very good plan of business to make sure you don't fall into this very high statistic of failures, okay? But it's an option again. And now let's give a look to the option of pilot. We said this guy in 4 years, he wasted 120,000 euros. Let's ask to Google, how much money will he be earning? So in Europe, average salary of a Ryanair first officer, 33,000 per year. And well, to be honest, I find this number a little small. Can vary by location, experience. Yeah, higher potential earning up to 80,000. I would say 80,000 if you are a synthetic flight instructor, not really as a first officer. But yeah, 33 is really a small number. I wonder if it's a true number, but anyway, that's what we will say. So let's consider it true. For sure, it's a true number as a first employment. Yeah, at the beginning of your employment. Then this 33,000 is absolutely correct. So yeah, probably that's the meaning of this. At this point, let's make a bit more generic research. Pilot salary is in Europe around 155, 165 annually. But that's direct entry captains. We're not really interested in this at the moment. Yeah, 150 is a good number. Let's put first officer in this case. First officer salary, and let's see what it gave us. And it says, yeah, I mean, these numbers sounds good to me. Okay, so let's use this number at this point, and I just pretend, as we say, on the first year, well, as soon as he finds a job, is on a 30,000 per year. Okay, that's what we said. Ryanair salary, that's what we say is the lower number. This makes sense to have 30,000 per year on the first year, because it's the year you're in training. Now, you're not in training for an entire year when you join the line, but let's pretend 30,000, okay? Now, on the second year, the salary is going to be rising. I would say reasonably something around 45, and I would say 50,000. It's a honest number for both Ryanair, and it was in full with the average we found for the first officer. But here, after 5 years working as a pilot, I would like to put a green box. What is this green box? Okay, it's the moment where, at least in Ryanair, you can go for command grade. Most companies will offer you the command, more or less, at this point. So the thing is, well, after 5 years you can move for command. Let's pretend to be on the worst case scenario that this pilot fails his command grade, so he cannot pass his command and he remains first officer. Okay, well, after, in theory, normally 6 months, but let's say that for some reason it remains first officer for a bit longer. It remains at 50,000, and at this point, finally, after 2 years, very lazy first officer, but after 2 years he finally becomes captain. Okay, so what is the average salary for a captain in Europe? Varied from 55,000 to 178. 55 sounds to me really miserable for a captain, to be honest. But 95,000 euros as average, could be a good number. Still, it's not. It sounds pretty low to me, but could be a good number. So yeah, let's use this number. Let's use 100,000. Okay, and let's not give him any pay rise throughout the year. So he's losing the inflation as well. We give him 100,000 euros per year. Okay, you see that the end of his career, the number we're interested in is looking like 3,155. So basically 3 million euros. So he got 1 million euro more than the university guy. And he's been studying, he's been actually unemployed for 1 year and a half, first of all. He has been studying just for 2 years, not 6 years. And even, I mean, if the lawyer will get more money, you know, the other question we have to discuss here is, okay, but what is the quality of life that this person is living? We can even go better and say, okay, let's say that after more or less, you know, 20 years working, this lawyer gets a lot of money. So I'm gonna give him a salary of 100,000 per year. Okay, the same salary of the captain, which 100,000 for a captain, I would say it's a misery. Okay, but still, you know, I give 100,000 even to the lawyer because, again, you could make even more than that. Okay, we're just trying to find out some reasonable number. But even if I put 100,000 after something like you know, 20 years is working, what happens that now it cannot catch up with the pilot, and it still has more money, still has at the end of his career 2 million enough, but still it can't catch up with this pilot that, you know, has been captain for all of his career. Now what I will do is that I will create another column actually, and let's call it the Ryanair case, because we've been talking about the Future Flyer Academy, the Aviomar Future Flyer Academy that brings you to Ryanair. So let's make it a blue column, okay, and we call it the Future Flyer career. So the basically you go to Aviomar, you take the Future Flyer career. Now, first of all, you're not gonna have to pay the 30,000, and that's, I would say, a good start. And now you see here, stop a moment, because now it's where you see that thanks to the sponsorship of Ryanair, you get exactly the same amount you have with the university. The university guy spent approximately 90,000 in a time frame of 6 years. You spent, most likely with Ryanair, you're not going to be unemployed for 1 year. I would be extremely surprised if you stay unemployed for 1 year, okay? But I want to keep this margin of 1 year. Say that the course takes a bit longer, or whatever reason, you know, that's fine. But what I'm saying that here we're talking of having 6 years of study as a university student and having 3 years of study as a pilot. And now the investment is exactly the same. You approximately spend 90,000, okay? But now you start earning money straight away. You don't have to keep studying and working hard for another 3 years of your life, okay? So in the Ryanair career, we say the salaries, they're more or less the same of the average, the totally European average, okay? And we said you go for common grade approximately 5 years after. So the Ryanair career definitely, the Ryanair captain, I'm not going to put 100,000 because I would say it's not really reasonable as a number. Let's start with 120, okay? I give you 120, but you know what? I don't give you the 2.4% annual increase. Let's say that I give you only 1%, okay, inflation. So I just give you 1,000 euros per year, same as we're doing with the university guy, okay. And this is the salary you would get in Ryanair. Actually, I did a mistake here because the pilot normally stopped working at the age of 65. So you would be retired at the age of 65. So the last 5 years, actually, you already retired, you earn a bit less money. So I'll put it as 50,000 euros per year. I have no idea what could be the salary in 40 years from now. Sorry, what could be the pension 40 years from now, okay? So I'll put it as 50,000. So this changed by basically 250,000, the final result, so more or less, okay? So you see the Ryanair career doesn't differ at the end that much. We still ending with significantly more money because we start talking of 4 million enough in the entire career of the pilot, which is not bad. But let's say you really want to push it. You say, yeah, but I really want to make money out of my job. Let's see. Already you started with the Ryanair career, which is paying better than many other pilot career. But let's see if you can then, at this point, resign from Ryanair and be a gold seeker. You know, try to see who pays better. So I can find the best salary in Switzerland, Luxembourg. Actually, I'll change it this mind. Switzerland, followed by Luxembourg, and then the United States. But it doesn't tell me the amount. Okay, let's try to do another search. So what is the best pilot salary? Let's put it this way. Between 300,000 and 1 million annually, yeah, it's true. There are some pilots, we call it the 1 million pilot, but here we're pushing a bit much, because the 1 million pilot is the pilots that some pilots of general aviation, they get very good pay, because of course their customer, the private pilot of a specific customer that, you know, particularly care in having good quality pilots. So this could happen. I mean, yeah, I could put 1,000, but no, I mean, yeah, if you get 1 million euro per year, of course you at the end of the career, this calculation doesn't even work. You got something like, you know, millions. But no, I don't care about this. Let's try to be reasonable. I try to be realistic. What I'm saying is, you know, you really want to go in a place where you earn a lot of money. Of course, you would like to earn 1 million euro, but it's very difficult to find those positions. So, you know, what is a position which can be easily achieved, or easily? I mean, nothing is easy, but can be achieved reasonably, and a pilot can take in order to make money. You know, company hire pilots for the best salary, so maybe we got some job offers, and we got Delta Airlines. We get 500,000 annually. No, I don't like Delta, because you have to be entitled to live in the US. It's very difficult to have a green card, and it's not very safe in this period. So I would say let's try a place which is safer and easy to obtain a green card. Let's see which Chinese airline announced the higher salary. Okay, let's see what is. Air China and Hainan Airlines, you can earn around 300,000. And in fact, I have a few friends that went in China. So China, yeah, it's a nice place to live. Maybe for us, with the European standard, we don't really go crazy for it. I would say definitely better than US anyway. But yeah, if I use this number, then we go to China and we go for 300,000. You see that with 300,000, just give him 10 years, okay? Let's pretend that you stay in China for 10 years, and then you want to get back to Europe. Only giving him 10 years in China, this guy is finishing basically his life having earned a total of something like 6 million euro, which is definitely nearly twice as much the lawyer. Of course, you could be the 1 million euro pilot, but it's not easy. We are talking about joining the general aviation, which is not easy. General aviation has at the same time the worst salary, because some owners, they really want to save money. Don't ask me why, but they do save money on their pilots. So they obtain very poor quality out of their pilots. And some private owners, they really want to have the best pilots in the market, so they really pay them a lot, and that's why we get these 1 million euro pilots. So I mean, I wish to you that you might find a job that you like and it's well paid, but this Chinese opportunity with Hainan, with the Air China, not that bad. It's nice, you know. China is quite a safe place. It's a reasonable place. So, you know, overall, I would say it could be a good choice. However, what I want to attract your attention on is this box in brown. Okay, so basically we are talking of more or less 10 to 15 years after the pilot started, after this person started his process. Okay, so we said 10 years after, there is a chance that the guy that opened the restaurant, he went completely bankrupt and lost all his money, and we are talking of 66% chances that everything is gone. There is a possibility that is a very famous restaurant and this guy is making a huge amount of money. Okay, at the same time, the guy is in university, you know, even by taking, you know, the best option, 10 years after, it is just zero. So basically all the money that he or his family invested in doing the university, you know, all that money came back, but he still didn't earn that much money. He's still on 30,000 euros per month, per year. What does it mean? Is that 10 years after he started this process, 4 years after finishing the university, if he wants to have a family, take a loan, buy a house, you know, he still can't, you know, with a salary which is around 1,800, 2,500 euros per month. What kind of loan the bank is gonna give to you? So you're not gonna be able to buy the house. It's maybe after 15 years you're gonna be able to start buying a house, so start paying the loan. Okay, the pilot, after 10 years, so first of all he went even, you know, so when the university guy was finishing the university at the 6th year, the pilot went break even with his investment. So basically he started earning money. The second thing is that after 10 years he was basically about to become a captain, and he was on a salary which is 80,000, and if he just became captain is a salary of 100 or 120,000 euros per year. And of course, if he has a family after 10 years and he wants to buy a house, I'm not saying he's buying the house cash, but he has the ability to buy the house and to obtain a good loan because he can show a very nice pay slip, okay?
Paolo's Pilot Lounge. Like and subscribe now.
In conclusion, we simply use this table to show that the cost of the university and the cost of becoming a pilot are exactly the same. Unfortunately, there are state aids for the university. There are no state or European funds for the pilots. So if you are entitled to obtain state aids, if you are entitled to go to university for free, then the choice is very difficult. Maybe you don't even have choice because that's a lot of money, okay? But then I agree that it's a difficult choice because it's a lot of money against basically nothing, okay? But as average, a young person today has to pay the same amount of money to follow a full university course or to become a pilot. We said after 10 years of taking this decision, the pilot, however, is in a much better financial situation. And after 15 years, the pilot has probably repaid all his debts. So basically, if you bought a house, the loan for the house is repaid. If you bought a car, the loan for the car is repaid, which means that the pilot can concentrate all his income in his family and the things he cares about, maybe buying a beautiful car simply, you know. While the student coming from the university after 10 years was more or less in the break even, and after 15 years is reasonably in the middle of repaying his debts. He's still paying the loan of the house. So he cannot concentrate all his income in his family. In final, at the end of your career, we said there is a higher chance to be able to close your career as a pilot with a higher salary or with a higher total income as compared to the person that comes from the university. But this all depends from your own choices. If you're available to travel abroad and take a base very far away from home, or if you like to stay home and look after the base. So there is a large number of choices that change on this. But at the end of the day, the two results, even in the worst of the calculations, the two results were coming more or less back to the same numbers. Now, how do I get enrolled onto the Ryanair Future Flyer Academy? Well, I start by going on the Aviomar website, which is www.aviomar.org. You will have a cookie to accept. Probably I have already accepted. I know it pop up to me again. And once you're done with this, you go on courses and you see the first option is the Ryanair Future Flyer Academy. You got here the several entry that we discuss, and normally, well, I guess you will be for the ab initio. You got here a lot of information, the structure of the course that we have seen, and date of starting. And if you have any question, you can ask here. Details about courses, prices, requirements, maybe anything that we didn't see in this video. Now, if you want to enroll onto a course, you see that you have here course registration, and of course you can go here for the registration here. This one is the white tail basically, and here you got the Ryanair Future Flyer Academy. So if I click here, you see that there's quite a lot of information that is required. Of course, your name, some information if you don't have, like the Italian PPS number. It's not a required field, but you will need a photo, you need the passport scan, of course your address, some details about your English proficiency, aeronautical English proficiency if you have, and then, well, it's going to be for sure your CV, details of your previous employers, and details of your previous study. You're gonna have also the medical class 1 to load. If you don't have the medical class 1, you can still apply actually. Of course, informing that you have already an appointment to get this medical class 1, because it takes time to actually obtain an appointment for the class 1 visit. And of course, at the end, you go submit, and you are enrolled at least in the assessment days. Just to let you know, there's going to be a fee for the assessment. It's not free of charge. This fee should be in the range of 200 euros if I don't go wrong. But of course, all the details will be provided prior to the assessment, or again, if you have any question, you can ask it through the course menu. Okay, at this point, I would be very grateful if you could consider the like and subscribe to this video. And before saying hello, I want to clarify once again that today I was not trying to sell you any product. So I am an instructor for the Future Flyer Academy with Aviamar, but I have no direct interest in selling this product. So there is no money coming back to me for this. I was just presenting something that might make you save a lot of money, might make you save a lot of time. I'm not trying to sell you gold. This is not one of those videos where I tell you, you just give 90,000 and then you got 100,000 per year for the rest of your life. No, absolutely not. There is a hard work behind. Of course, if you go for self-employed, there is a very high risk, but we have to be honest, there is a possibility, although we have seen the statistic, but there is a possibility that maybe you have a bar that makes 100,000 euros every night. So, it's not said that it's going to be wasted money, but we have to admit that there is a high risk. If you take the pilot career, we say that reasonably you should have an income which is equal or slightly higher than what it should be for a university guy. Of course, if you study at university, you really want to get a job where you make money, you must be really a good guy, then you're probably gonna make more money. Even a lawyer could make 1 million euro per year, okay? We saw it, pilots can also have that. Maybe lawyer can make even more than 1 million euro, well, pilots doesn't get more. But we have seen that the salary that are accessible through the pilot study are slightly higher, especially at the beginning of the career. So studying as a pilot, we have to be clear, it's a higher risk as compared as studying at the university, because the pilot requires medical fitness. Of course, there are insurances on licenses, but before insuring your pilot license, you must obtain a pilot license. So yes, once you have the license, you can insure it, so in case an accident occurs, you still covered, but you have to obtain this license. And there's been cases, there are several cases of pilots that obtain the license, especially in the white tail, and then they don't find a job. As an example, I want to show you a post, and I come through a lot of posts, when I on the internet, I would say something like this. Once every 2 or 3 months I see some posts like this, and you see these persons that of course I identify. It says, I would hate to be a student right now. The amount of false marketing and outright deception I have seen in this industry is astonishing. From inflated job promises to misleading timelines to hidden costs that appear after you committed. Of course, it says, do your homework, analyze very carefully the flight school. So I can't disagree with this. But I want to underline that there is a number of pilots that after the school, they don't find a job. So you have to be very careful about the school you're choosing. On the same side, I could tell you, we are really deceived by those pilots that they actually take a place on a limited number classroom. We invest instructors, we invest time, we invest aircraft time on the training of this pilot. Of course you say, yeah, but this pilot is paying. Yes, but the company needs pilots. The flight school need to provide pilots, well qualified pilots, to the company. And what happens sometimes is that then this pilot can't pass the exams. So we are really deceived as well. There is deception for the side of the pilots, there is deception from the side of the flight school, because we need to provide pilots to the flight school. And it's annoying having invested instructor and aircraft time onto a person that then can't make through the exam, can't make it in the flight test and so on. So we want people that really works hard. We want people that is committed, that study hard, that works hard through their training. And this is what will guarantee to you success. The Future Flyer Academy, as we say, has this great advantage of having the guarantee of the job. So if you close the course, if you come to the end of the course, you will have your job guarantees. Time, yeah, it's true that sometimes the timelines cannot be kept, and that's why I included 1.5 years of unemployment on these 2 years. Actually, the integrated TPL could be 18 months, but that's why I included 1.5 years, because I really wanted to account for this. You say, is it normal that timeline is not respected? Well, you have to consider that aircrafts are extremely expensive. An aircraft costs something like 60 million euros or dollars, and when it arrives, when there is a flight schedule for the aircraft, the average cost of a delay is 1,000 euros per minute. So if the company has to leave pilots on the ground waiting or aircraft on the ground waiting, it is obvious that the choice is pilots on the ground waiting. So it is absolutely normal that during your training you have some dead times where you actually doing nothing. You're not flying, you're not studying, and you're just waiting for the company to call you. So I know it's not ideal, I absolutely understand, but that's how the industry works. So that is absolutely normal. We want to have the pilot ready to fly the aircraft as soon as the aircraft arrives. That's how the game works on all companies. It's not just something that happens with Ryanair, with Ryanair, with all companies. That's the principle. You don't want to leave the aircraft parked and not having pilots to fly the aircraft. That would be really annoying for a company. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, with this we have absolutely covered all the topics we wanted to talk about, and I hope to see you again on one of my videos, because my videos are training videos. So if that is what will happen, it's probably because you will be enrolled into a pilot course. Thank you very much for your attention once again, and I hope to see you soon.